What if I told you that obsessive pursuit of happiness, that constant push to be positive, is actually making you more unhappy? What if happiness at all costs was a gilded prison? We live in an era where positivity has been elevated to dogma, an essential condition for a life worth living. But beneath this glittering veneer of forced smiles and motivational statements lies an uncomfortable truth. The obligation to be happy is creating a veritable dictatorship of well-being, a system that paradoxically, rather than liberating us, imprisons us, denying us the luxury and necessity of being human with all our nuances. Today we'll explore how this social pressure to always feel like you're on top is not only unrealistic, but can profoundly damage our authentic well-being. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about happiness and discover why embracing sadness, anger, and fear is the real secret to a fuller, more authentic life. Just scroll through your social media feeds or visit the self-help section of a bookstore to realize happiness has become a product, a consumer good to be acquired at all costs. Phrases like good vibes only, be the best version of yourself, and think positive and everything will be fine have become ubiquitous mantras. It almost seems like if you don't flash a dazzling smile or post about your latest yoga session at sunrise, you're somehow failing in life. This phenomenon, which we could define as the rise of toxic optimism, has transformed positivity into the only socially acceptable emotion. Optimism, in itself, is a valuable trait. It helps us overcome challenges and maintain hope. But when optimism turns into an impenetrable shield against any negative emotion, it becomes toxic. Imagine a mountain landscape where only the highest peaks are celebrated, while the valleys, rivers, and forests are ignored or demonized. This is exactly what happens with our emotions. Only joy, enthusiasm, and gratitude are allowed on stage, while sadness, anger, and fear are relegated to the background, as if they were manufacturing defects of our psyche. This narrow and simplified view of human experience leads us to believe that our worth depends on our ability to maintain a facade of eternal happiness. We are taught that negative emotions are a sign of weakness, an obstacle to success, something to be fought, eliminated, or worse yet, hidden. This system not only excludes and devalues a fundamental part of our emotional experience, but it also deprives us of the tools to understand and navigate the complexity of life. Think about how many times you've heard, "Don't think about it, be positive," when perhaps you just needed to vent your frustration. It's a denial of the full human experience, an attempt to flatten emotional richness into a single, artificial shade of pink. The wellness market, with its happiness gurus and its transformation courses, has been able to capture this trend, capitalizing on our emotional insecurity. They sell us quick fixes, easy recipes to reach a state of permanent bliss, ignoring that life is a bumpy road full of curves, ups and downs. And so, we find ourselves chasing an unattainable ideal, feeling even more frustrated and inadequate, when reality, as inevitable, presents us with the bill for our most uncomfortable emotions. This vicious circle traps us in a golden cage, where the pursuit of happiness paradoxically turns into a constant source of anxiety and dissatisfaction. Life, by its very nature, is a complex orchestra, not a single note. It includes joy and pain, hope and disappointment, love and loss. Reducing our emotional experience to only positivity is like expecting an orchestra to play only happy melodies, ignoring the dramatic symphonies, melancholic harmonies, and dissonances that are also part of music. The truth is that not all emotions are positive in the common sense of the word, and that's a good thing. Think for a moment about emotions like sadness, anger, anxiety, or fear. They're labeled negative, but this label is misleading. They are not the enemy, but rather messengers, vital signals developed over the course of evolution to guide us, protect us, and help us grow. Fear, for example, is a very powerful alarm system. It was what made our ancestors avoid dangers, such as predators or cliffs. Even today, fear warns us of risky situations, pushing us to be cautious, to prepare, to protect ourselves. Without fear, we would cross the street without looking or rush into reckless decisions. Anger, often considered a destructive emotion, can be a catalyst for change. It is anger at injustice that drives people to fight for their rights, to denounce abuses, to seek solutions to profound social problems. It's an emotion that tells us that a limit has been crossed, that a value has been violated, and that action is needed. Of course, uncontrolled anger can be harmful, but conscious anger is a powerful tool for defending oneself and others. And sadness? We often run away from it, hide it, consider it a sign of weakness. Yet, sadness is fundamental to the grieving process, whether for the loss of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the disappointment of a shattered dream. It allows us to slow down, reflect, and reconnect with ourselves and others, fostering empathy and mutual support. Without sadness, we would be unable to process losses and find a new balance. It is a silent companion that invites us to introspection and healing. Even anxiety, though uncomfortable, can be a driving force. A certain amount of anxiety before an exam or job interview pushes us to prepare better, to be more attentive and focused. It only becomes problematic when it is disproportionate or persistent, but its primary function is to mobilize our resources in the face of uncertainty. These negative emotions are essentially valuable information. They tell us something about ourselves, our needs, our environment. Suppressing them means depriving ourselves of this crucial information, navigating life blindfolded. Accepting them, on the contrary, allows us to understand them, decipher their message, and respond more consciously and effectively. Recognizing their function helps us not see them as enemies to be eliminated, but as an integral and necessary part of our complex emotional architecture. Imagine a raging river. If you try to block its flow with a makeshift dam, the water doesn't disappear. It simply accumulates, the pressure builds, and sooner or later it will find another outlet, perhaps by eroding the banks or overflowing violently. This is exactly what happens when we repress our emotions. They don't magically disappear. Instead, they build up, fermenting beneath the surface, generating internal pressure that, in the long run, can have devastating effects on our mental and physical health. One of the most immediate effects of emotional repression is chronic stress. The body is constantly on high alert, trying to contain this mass of unexpressed emotions. This results in increased levels of the stress hormone cortisol, which in turn can lead to insomnia, irritability, concentration problems, and a general feeling of fatigue. It is no coincidence that in a society that values positivity at all costs, rates of anxiety and depression are constantly increasing. When we are forbidden to feel sad or angry, we simply hide these feelings, but they continue to gnaw away from within, transforming into generalized anxiety disorders, panic attacks, or latent forms of depression, which then explode in unexpected ways. But it's not just our mind that suffers. The bond between mind and body is inextricable. Emotional repression has been linked to a variety of physical health problems. Studies have shown a possible link to increased chronic inflammation, which underlies many autoimmune diseases, cardiovascular diseases, and even some cancers. The immune system, constantly under pressure to manage emotional stress, can weaken, making us more vulnerable to infections and diseases. Some researchers have hypothesized that conditions such as migraines, digestive problems, such as irritable bowel syndrome, and even some skin conditions may be partly physical manifestations of repressed and unprocessed emotions. It's a cruel paradox. The relentless pursuit of happiness, with its implicit denial of negative emotions, turns into a risk factor for our mental and physical health. Instead of freeing us, this dictatorship of well-being makes us more fragile, more exposed. It forces us to wear a mask, to play a part, and in the long run, this performance exhausts us, empties us, and distances us from our true selves. True strength lies not in denying our weaknesses, but in accepting them, understanding them, and integrating them into our experience. Resisting the emotional current, instead of learning to navigate it, costs us much more than we can imagine. So, if the constant pursuit of happiness is a dead end, what does authentic well-being really mean? It's not the absence of negative emotions, nor a perpetual state of euphoric joy. Authentic well-being is rather the ability to experience and accept the full range of our emotions, both pleasant and unpleasant, understanding that they all have a role and meaning in our lives. It's like being an expert navigator. You don't just expect calm seas and sunshine, but you learn to read the waves, manage storms, and find your way even when the sky is gray. It means developing true emotional literacy, recognizing one's emotions not as good or bad, but as information. When I feel sadness, I can ask myself, what is this sadness telling me? Is there a loss I need to process? Is there something I need to give up? When I feel anger, what are my boundaries that have been violated? What is driving me to defend them? It's not about letting yourself be overwhelmed by emotions, but about managing them in a healthy way, feeling them, giving them space, processing them, and then letting them go without getting trapped. A fundamental pillar of authentic well-being is authentic emotional expression. This doesn't mean venting every emotion impulsively and destructively, but being honest with yourself and others about your feelings. Being vulnerable, allowing others to see even our cracks, is actually a tremendous strength. When we open up and show our fragility, we create deeper, more meaningful connections. Think of a friend who confides in you about their sadness. Isn't that when you feel closest to them? Vulnerability is the bridge we build between our inner world and that of others, allowing empathy to flow in both directions. Accepting vulnerability also means shedding the mask of perfection that the dictatorship of well-being imposes on us. It means recognizing that it's okay not to be okay. It's an act of courage, freeing up incredible energy, previously spent maintaining a facade. This energy can now be channeled toward personal growth, creativity, and building authentic relationships. Finally, authentic well-being is closely linked to building emotional resilience. Resilience isn't the absence of setbacks, but the ability to get back up, learn from difficult experiences, and adapt. It's the mental and emotional flexibility that allows us to face life's inevitable challenges without being overwhelmed. This is cultivated through mindfulness, the practice of self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness you would a dear friend, and building a strong social support system. Ultimately, true well-being isn't found in constant, superficial happiness, but in the richness and depth of an existence that embraces every emotional nuance. It's knowing how to dance in the rain as well as enjoy the sun. It is a journey of self-discovery and acceptance, a path that leads us to a fuller, more honest, and paradoxically much more joyful life, because it is an authentic joy, born from the totality of the human experience. Don't be fooled by the dictatorship of well-being. It's not a good that must be achieved, but a balance that must be cultivated. It is an inner freedom that allows us to be fully ourselves, with all our lights and shadows. Happiness, true happiness, is not an obligation, but a consequence of this radical self-acceptance. Embrace all your emotions, for they are your greatest superpower to live an authentically rich and meaningful life. If this video made you think, Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future insights on mental health and authentic well-being.